Hi there, and welcome back to English Coach. It's good to be here with you today, talking about the value of being skeptical or teaching yourself to be skeptical, as so many things in life have an explanation, often one that we don't understand from the outside or we don't have proof or evidence at this time, and that actually we need to investigate more and not come to conclusions about what that thing is. Now, today's specific focus will be about cryptids, okay? And cryptids are interesting because they are creatures that are supposed to be either supernatural or straight out of their gene pool and into some kind of abstract kind of freak version of their species, if you like. And this is something that I think happens a lot less than we think. I think we think that it happens all the time. And so we think that there's all of these supernatural creatures out there. A lot of people who um, have different beliefs, for example, don't believe that there is any form of evolution, that animals haven't evolved to find their niche in the world, often have these strange ideas and also contribute and participate and keep these conversations alive, which can often be a little bit problematic because there's no real scientific evidence that any of these cryptids exist. Anyhow, let's get to the point, and the point is people are generally very gullible about this kind of thing. And I want to give you an example, a perfect example of a cryptid that a lot of the world is pretty sure exists, but the local people are absolutely sure it exists, but it's been proven to be a complete hoax, and the story behind it is absolutely fascinating. So I want to take you today to the island, or I don't even know if we can call it an island because it's so big. The island of Borneo, which is a huge island, which I think is separated between three different countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and something else. Probably Papua New Guinea, I'm not sure. But what I am sure is the name of the towns that I'm talking about today. One town in particular, the name was Muara Koman. Now, some of you may understand this. Some of you may have heard about this on the History Channel. They love to promote cryptids and all sorts of cryptos, zoo animals, right? But the story of Orang Pendek, which is an Indonesian legend, and it talks about these small hairy people, and these hairy people are supposed to be some kind of supernatural sort of fusion between animal and man that like exists in the forests and is very sinister and has supernatural powers. And in fact, this story has been told all over Indonesia, and now it has become pretty widely known about in the outside world as well, because we're talking about places in the world where it's all rainforest. It's all big rivers and mountains and rainforest and completely inaccessible regions and very tropical. So you've got a lot of poisonous insects and snakes and things like that in there as well. You can imagine that this territory is huge, but in this particular village that we're talking about today, Muara Koman, in some cases they have a custom, and in fact, this is a custom that some villages practice and some villages don't practice. It's when they have a child who has been brought up with birth defects. Okay, now with these birth defects, we can talk about things like the shape of the skull, or in the case of this creature, Orang Pendek, children that are born with excessive amounts of hair. Now, this is very, very, very rare, as you're probably and hopefully analyzing me and saying, "Hang on, this can't be happening very often," and it really doesn't. It doesn't happen often. But when these birth defects do happen, often what happens to the child is after they have learned the basics of survival outside of their village, often they are ousted or rejected from the village and sort of put to the wild, if you like. And from this area in Indonesian Borneo, you have one of these small, very, very probably superstitious villages where they believe that if your baby is born with a defect, it could be something quite bad for the whole tribe. So you need to get that child trained and out into the wild so that they could fend for themselves and not be a bad influence on the tribe, as it's more of a reality where you need to be strong to survive, and you've got sort of more predators to contend with, and etc. So anyway, the story goes like this: the crypto, or this orang pendek, crypto animal, if you like, crypto zoo animal that was supposed to be a supernatural fusion between a human and an animal, human and an ape, was wandering around another village at the other end of, or on the other side of, Indonesian Borneo, called a village called Kota Baru. Now, in this village, this crypto, or whatever it was found in areas where you would have sort of not exactly wild plantations. They were things that were planted in the forest on purpose by the tribe, but not. I guess you would call it maybe it's their version of a food forest. And this creature was found picking things like bananas and mangoes and different fruits from this little fruit forest, and it scared the living hell out of the inhabitants of Kota Baru. So another legend was born, and it was documented that this orang pendek was around this village, somewhere in the vicinity of this village. This creature existed. Now, probably if you go to this village today, it's still a thing. It's still a thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that this is no supernatural creature. This is most probably a child that was abandoned when they were 7 or 8 or 9 years old, okay, from the village, with a birth defect. Somewhere in the jungle, they have been observed by members of other tribes and other villages that have seen this child and mistaken it for some kind of supernatural animal, right? And gotten very scared and documented it. And to this day, if you look at the nature of the villages and the span of territory, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because once a child who has the basic survival skills is let off into the wild, into the jungle, the first priority it will have is food. So it will probably go to the neighboring villages, areas where they have some kind of plantation, some kinds of in the forest orchard, and they will be seen in those areas and they will be mistaken for some kind of supernatural animal. So actually you had people from History Channel and other areas actually traveling to these locations in Indonesia, not exactly these two cities that are little villages that I've mentioned today, but actually other regions of Indonesia where this kind of animal has been claimed to have been inhabiting, and they've never seen anything or found anything. And probably the reason is it's nothing supernatural. It's an actual human child, or maybe an adolescent or teenage child with some kind of birth defect that has actually survived being rejected or ostracized from their village, which is an absolutely fascinating concept if you really stop to think about it, and makes a lot more sense than a supernatural kind of little foot, if you like, instead as a opposite to the Bigfoot, as a contrasting Bigfoot is the little foot, as this cryptid is called orang pendek. which I guess means the small ape man. Okay, so but what I'm suggesting is a more general idea from my example. What I'm suggesting to you is probably that this happens more often than not in a lot of very isolated places. Things are misunderstood. Things that you see from a distance can be very misunderstood. I come from New Zealand originally, and I think 20 years ago or 25 years ago, you would have hunting incidents where hunters would literally be shot. One group of hunters would shoot at another group of hunters, mistaking them for some kind of animal. Because from a distance, it's very easily for your vision to be distorted. So you've got that going on in there as well. But what I'm trying to say in general is be careful about what you believe. You know, if you believe in all of the folklore about or one of the stories about where humans come from, but it's not related to science, I can't really argue with you because, well, in that world, fairies can exist because basically you're saying that there's no science involved. It's all about miracles. It's all about things like talking snakes and things like that. So I can't argue with you on that. But for people that believe in evolution, that have a little bit of background or enough background to say that most animals evolved over time and that their evolutions, their bodily and brain evolutions helped them to adapt to either new environments or new threats in their pre-existing environment. So basically what I'm trying to say is go with the logical explanation until you can actually find evidence for something more strange or sinister. Okay? What I'm telling you to do is learn how to be skeptical. Don't believe the first thing that you see or hear without evidence of something deeper there. When you look at something and you judge it by its appearance, often you're being a fool, okay? And you're not thinking and you're not trying to understand the bigger picture. And everything from orang pendek to Bigfoot to the Loch Ness Monster often has some sort of explanation, and sometimes it's in nature. When we talk about the Bigfoot, often it's a big grizzly or it's a brown bear that's been working on its feet instead of crawling around on all fours. It's been working on its feet and been getting quite used to that. And at night, without the proper vision, you can mistake that for any number of crazy cryptids, okay? But the one that they give it to is Bigfoot, so congratulations on that. But looking to Scotland and Loch Ness, it's a bit of a mystery. There's a lot of mysteries in there, but the two culprits that probably fit the description of the Loch Ness in these terms, the creature is a lot smaller, are the eel and the sturgeon fish, both of which can grow to more than 3 meters. Exposing part of their body in the water can make them seem a lot bigger than they are, and often the water is quite dark, and actually the bottom of the loch has been described as muddy, so it's not actually easy to get good vision again. So you can mistake a 90-year-old eel or a 95-year-old eel. Imagine that. They live until 120 years. Sturgeons probably more and get quite big. So think about that. Sometimes there's a natural, in fact, I'd say almost 99% of the time there's a natural explanation for these things, and 1% of the time there's probably something sinister and crazy supernatural going on, but you won't be witnessing that because it's so rare, okay? And people that witness that probably don't live to tell the tale, Okay. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching me on English Coach. Take my advice and be a skeptic. Don't believe in all of this. I don't know. I don't want to say any curse words, or I don't want to say anything that I would regret, but don't believe in in this folklore and this superstition. Stick with what's real. Stick with what's scientific, and use that as a base for your approach on life. If you believe in fantasy things, how do you expect to have a serious life? Okay? Thanks for being here, and see you on the next video.